Hello and welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I am Gushin Garland, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. Filipino President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is facing impeachment complaints as civil society groups have accused him of systematically defrauding taxpayers over bogus flood control projects. This after powerful typhoons devastated the country last year. Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez is expected to visit the United States soon, according to a senior American official. The move signals President Donald Trump's willingness to embrace the oil-rich country's new leader. Japan pauses the restart of the world's largest nuclear power plant just hours after opening it. The halt follows alarms sounded by the monitoring systems. The plant was shut since the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Finnish intelligence cautions against the risk of long-range drones drifting into the country. The warning comes as Russia uses jamming systems to block Ukrainian strikes near the Gulf of Finland, as this could divert the UAVs. And landslides in the flood-hit northern New Zealand kill at least 2 people and bury several others under tons of mud. The landslips follow heavy rains overnight. All eyes were on Davos as President Donald Trump delivered a 70-minute address at the World Economic Forum, a speech that quickly became one of the most talked about moments of this year's summit. Trump announced on Thursday a framework of a future deal intended to settle the issue of the Arctic territory. In his Davos speech, Trump insisted he wanted Greenland, including right, title, and ownership. Trump made it clear that the United States will not use military force to acquire Greenland. He also walked back his threat to impose sweeping U.S. tariffs on 8 European countries. The president had previously warned of 10% tariffs starting February 1, with the possibility of increasing them to 25% in June.
I probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
Trump later called the Greenland framework a concept of a deal. However, its details remain unclear. European leaders, while relieved to see the tariffs withdrawn, and call the framework vague and warned against being pressured on Greenland. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that his meeting with Donald Trump did not cover the key question of whether Greenland would remain under Danish sovereignty.
What I don't hear is Greenland is it still under the Kingdom of Denmark in this framework deal?
That issue did not come up anymore in my conversations tonight with the President. We very much focused on what do we need to do to make sure that that huge Arctic region, where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and Russians are more and more active, how we can protect that. That was really the focus of our discussions.
Meanwhile, Denmark has issued a cautious but firm response to Donald Trump's remarks on Greenland, isn't it?
Denmark is keeping our agreements. And the agreement we made in Washington last week with his Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his Foreign Minister, Marco Rubio, that we will start high-level discussions to see if we are able to accommodate the American concerns. Concerns that, as I also understand the President touched upon in this speech, in a way that respects our red lines. That is what we can negotiate about. Well, we are not starting any negotiations based on giving up some basic principles. We will never do that.
At the same time, NATO allies are moving to strike a careful balance, calling for calm diplomacy over Greenland. They are also pushing for a stronger military presence in the strategic High North. British Defence Secretary confirmed major NATO-aligned military exercises later this year, aimed at deterring threats and reassuring allies.
Recognizing the growing threats from Russia, recognizing the growing interest from China, and recognizing the way that the High North will open up increasingly with climate change, and increasingly become an area of competition in which we three, through NATO, with the US playing a part, will reinforce the security and the deterrence for the future.
Political leaders and attendees gave mixed reactions to President Trump's speech. In fact, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who earlier called Trump T-Rex, described the speech as lacking substance.
You learned nothing. There was nothing offered there. It was at times boorish, but even by Trump standards, ish. So it was just remarkable in its inconsequential nature. I expected more from him. I really did. It was never on the table, invasion. Give me a damn break. And so he's exactly where we were a week or two ago. But what seems different now is leadership seems to be a little bit more, I think, willing to say publicly what we all know they're saying privately. And I think that was meaningful and was reflected in today's deeply, significantly insignificant remarks.
Global markets staged a relief rally on Wednesday after US President Donald Trump softened his tone on Greenland.
The markets are fairly relaxed. President Trump still wants Greenland, but very importantly, he doesn't want to seize it by force. He wants negotiations for Greenland to be bought. Of course, this leaves a great deal of room for speculation and negotiations, but most importantly, no militant pressure. And that is half the battle for today's stocks.
Aktientag heute.
As Davos summit continues, Trump's speech is clearly reshaping the conversation, not just about Greenland, but about power, alliances, and the future of world order. Shifting focus to President Trump's Board of Peace, Russia has responded to Trump's claim that Moscow has joined the Trump-led body. Russian president said that it's still studying the US proposal. He added that Russia views the board as primarily relevant to West Asia and not as replacement for existing international institutions. Putin said the country will be willing to contribute $1 billion from frozen Russian assets for Trump's Board of Peace. But the Russian leader fell short of accepting the proposal to join the body.
The Russian Foreign Ministry has been charged with studying the documents that were sent to us and to consult on the topic with our strategic partners. It is only after that we'll be able to reply to the invitation.
Russian hesitation is notable because Trump is pitching the Board of Peace as something far bigger than a Gaza ceasefire mechanism. Its leaked charter suggests a body designed to supplant parts of the United Nations, with Trump acting as chairman for life, with power to appoint board members and permanent seats tied to billion-dollar contributions. Apart from Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco and other 7 Muslim-majority countries such as Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Pakistan and Qatar say they will also join Trump's Board of Peace. In a joint statement, they framed their participation around Gaza, consolidating a permanent ceasefire, supporting reconstruction and advancing what they called a just and lasting peace. India, Canada and the UK have also been invited. Among these, the UK said it will not sign up for Trump's peace board for now. The Vatican has also confirmed that Pope Leo received an invitation. The board's charter will come into force once 3 states officially sign up. Membership runs in renewable 3-year terms. Permanent seats are tied to $1 billion in contribution. And while the body is presented as an international peace organization, its structure concretes extraordinary authority in one chair, US President Donald Trump. So this is where things stand. A fragile ceasefire in Gaza, a peace board in making with expanding ambitions, Russia watching but not committing. Trump's Board of Peace is no longer just about ending a war. It is becoming a test of who gets to shape the next global order and who decides the rules. Moving on to our next story. Iran has issued its strongest warning yet to the United States, signaling that any fresh attack will be met with full retaliation. The message comes at a time when tensions are already high over protests inside Iran and visible US military movements in the region. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi issued the warning in an opinion article published in the Wall Street Journal. He said Tehran would respond with overwhelming force if the country is attacked again. Araghchi stressed that Iran would not longer exercise restraint and that its armed forces are fully prepared to strike back. He described the message as a reality, not a threat, as tensions continue to rise across the region. This comes as the United States steps up its military presence near West Asia. According to reports, a U.S. aircraft carrier group, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, has been moving west from Asia. American fighter jets and missile systems have also been repositioned closer to the region, raising concerns of a possible escalation. Meanwhile, tensions spilled beyond Iran's border. An Iranian Kurdish armed group based in Iraq claimed that Iran carried out a drone and missile strike on one of its bases near Erbil. The group said at least one fighter was killed, while Iranian authorities have not officially acknowledged the attack. Amid these developments, US President Donald Trump issued a fresh warning on Tuesday. Trump said he has been given firm instructions that Iran would face total destruction if any assassination threats against him are carried out. He also repeated that the killing of protesters or mass execution inside Iran would cross red lines for Washington.
If anything ever happens, we're going to blow the whole country is going to get blown up. So we've, originally Biden should have said something, when they made a statement. We always said, why isn't Biden saying anything? Because he didn't. But a president has to defend a president. Like if I were here and they were making that threat to somebody, not even a president, but somebody like they did with me, I would absolutely hit them so hard. But I have very firm instructions. Anything happens, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth.
The backdrop to this warning is Iran's violent crackdown on nationwide protests. Iranian state television on Wednesday released its first official figure, saying over 3,000 people were killed during weeks of unrest. Rights groups, however, claim the toll is much higher. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has blamed the unrest on foreign interference, including the United States. With Iran issuing blunt warnings, US forces on the move and protests leaving deep scars inside the country, the standoff is entering a dangerous phase. Even a small trigger could spiral into a wider conflict, affecting the entire region. And moving on to our last story of the show. The Bangladesh gears up for its first election post Sheikh Hasina's ouster. The campaigning for the highly anticipated general elections to be held on February 12 has officially started today. It will be the first since deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's dramatic exit from the country. Her party, Awami League, is banned from the election. The South Asian nation will see over 127 million voters cast their ballot for 350 lawmakers. In fact, political parties have started holding rallies across Bangladesh with hundreds and thousands of supporters in attendance. According to reports, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, and Jamaat-e-Islami are the frontrunners. BNP Supremo and Prime Ministerial candidate Tariq Rahman has launched his campaign from northeast Bangladesh. He returned to the country in December last year after spending 17 years in exile. Rahman has assumed formal charge of the party after the demise of his mother and former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia. Bangladesh is home to one of the world's largest Muslim populations. The country also has a significant Sufi following. In the past, many parties have launched campaigns in Sialet, home to the shrine of Shah Jalal. On Wednesday, scores of supporters gathered around the streets as Rahman offered prayers at the shrine. On the other hand, Jamaat-e-Islami is holding its first campaign rally in the capital Dhaka, which is the constituency of its leader Shafiqur Rahman. The party aims to make a comeback to formal politics. It has previously faced bans and years of crackdown during Hasina's term. The Islamist Party has formed an alliance with 9 other political parties, which includes the National Citizen Party, or the NCP. It is formed by the student leaders who led the uprising against Sheikh Hasina in 2024. The NCP will also campaign in Dhaka today. According to the country's Election Commission data, over 2,500 aspirants will contest the elections. BNP topped the list with over 330 submissions. Following the general elections, Mohammad Yunus will step down. The 85-year-old Nobel Prize laureate returned from exile in August 2024. Since then, he has been acting as the chief advisor of the interim government. He has pledged to hold a free and fair election. Yunus said that he inherited a completely broken political system in 2024.
If you cast the yes vote, the door to building the new Bangladesh will open.
Yunus has championed a reform charter on which the citizens will vote on the election day. The Yunus-led interim government is seeking support for what it calls a new political course built on reforms. The July National Charter has been signed by 25 of the country's 52 registered political parties. It is named after the uprising that began in July 2024 and led to the fall of Hasina, and is currently non-binding. The general elections in Bangladesh come at an extremely volatile time. Its deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled the country in August 2024. A student-led uprising forced her to flee and seek refuge in India. It brought an end to her decades of rule in the country. In November 2025, Hasina was sentenced to death in absentia for crimes against humanity. Then, in December 2025, the country witnessed massive protests after the murder of a student leader, Sharif Osman Hadi. Ties between India and Bangladesh have soured after Hasina's exit and targeted attacks on Hindu minority. After months of political turmoil, the election is set to test the country's democratic reset. Rise of old power and new alliances could shape Bangladesh's future at home and its ties abroad. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gursheen Garland and we'll see you right back here at the same time. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.